Hey guys, welcome to Scroll vs. Screen. I'm Steve. This is Ty.
What up?
Today we're doing our Annihilation episode. So I took the movie side of this.
Yep. Steve is playing Screen. I am playing Scroll for today.
Mm-hmm. So before we got into Annihilation, I had never even heard of the book. And the book, who wrote the book, by the way? What's his name?
That is Jeff Vandermeer. I'd never heard of the author either.
Yeah. So complete blind. Like yes. We were going, like we had no frame of reference. We never heard of the author. Not that isn't a bad or a good thing or a bad thing. It's just in our circles we generally don't.
This is a little outside of our normal realm. This thriller kind of.
Stress.
Somewhat sci-fi. Yeah, we'll get into what we would classify our feelings. Since that was a big part of the book, too, is classifying your feelings for each section. That was... So, anyways, let's just go after book versus movie. Which one did you like more?
So, I literally finished the book...
A couple hours ago, huh?
No, last night.
Okay.
Actually, I was up in bed reading, and my cats were bothering me. But I finished the book, it's the point where, like, my eyes were, like, closing. Like, I need to finish this book, but I also work at 4 a.m. Yeah. And it was really rough. And
yeah,
the book, it was really good. Like, I was going in, like, the first couple of pages, like, okay, the writing's a little different. It's nothing like I've never read a book quite like this, and it's not just what is in your mind's eye. It's the way that Jeff wrote it, like the language that he uses.
The language used. A big part of it I felt was the fact that they don't use names at all.
There's
everyone
no name.
Is called by their job position. So you have the surveyor, the psychologist, the
anthropologist,
the
and
biologist. In the book, there's only 4 in the book. There's 5 in the movie.
Other way around.
No. There's 4 in the book. One of them didn't even. The 5th one never even got.
Yeah, but who? Wait, there was not 5 people in the movie.
Yeah, there was.
Okay, so Natalie Portman, by the way, is the main actress.
We'll get to the differences there in a second. I'm just asking, like, which one did you like more?
Okay, that's really hard to say because from the book and from the movie, I had a different experience almost entirely.
They did delve very differently, and I'm wondering...
Extremely different.
Point of note, the book is part of a trilogy.
Yeah,
and I'm not sure if the rest of the trilogy closes up more similarly to the movie itself. So maybe by the end of the 3rd book, it kind of closes similar to the movie. Me personally, I liked the book a lot more. Reading that first definitely gave me different expectations for the movie. Even compared to what I thought the movie was going to be based on the trailers that I saw way back when it was in theaters.
Trailers lied. Trailers straight up lied.
The movie, while I liked some of the stuff in the movie, it felt weird to have it be the same name as the book, and I felt the similarities, but I gotta say, overall for the movie, I have not a huge desire to watch it again. I would rather read the book again over watch the movie again.
Okay.
Just simply because the movie had a lot of plot holes, I felt. A lot of things that just were illogical for a group of scientifically minded individuals and a military group that's also helping to run this. Just seemed kind of a little ridiculous that they didn't test in different ways.
Okay.
And I felt like the book did a much better job of covering why that was. So, similarities, let's go after that real quick. Or you want to go after basic plot line here?
Well, I want to say I like the... this is a very difficult SVS episode.
Dude, this is a difficult episode. I've been stressing over this one, waiting for you to finish this book.
It's
same as I was stressing over the book.
So
I've never read a book that gave me legitimate anxiety.
Yeah, I was pretty stressed too.
I'll
be honest.
I was reading this while I was in a cab ride in Chicago at 2 a.m. trying to get to my train for work. And it's pitch black. We're going through these neighborhoods where nothing is going on. And I'm just getting anxious. And I know wherever we go, I have a nice long walk in pitch black down the railroad track to get to where the head end of the train is. It's like, I've got this anxiety building in me.
Either way, you're alone for a little while.
Yeah, I'm like feeling like, oh my god, I don't need to be reading about this weird shit going on in a dark, foreboding place when I'm about to have to walk through pitch black, middle of the night, down south.
See,
that did not help.
I had the same thing. Like it was one of those. It definitely had the book. I'm talking about the book.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about the book for a few minutes here.
The book definitely grabbed my attention.
It was darker.
Yeah.
Well, it gave that anxiety of darkness because. Okay, I'm gonna jump into one of the differences here real quick.
No, please, yes.
The movie, they are trying to get to this lighthouse the whole time. They stop at a couple places. They make camp at like an old military base. They're moving through the jungle. They make camp in the forest. The book, they start at their little base of operations, and they find
their FOB, forward operating base.
FOB. They know where the lighthouse is. They know they need to explore that at some point. It seems like a lot of their mission is directed around this. Mm-hmm. But they find another structure. And this one goes underground, almost like a tunnel. But for some reason, the character keeps thinking it's a tower.
The main character
keeps referring to it as a tower. But what it does is it creates this like intense pressure around you because now you're in an underground cavern or tunnel or whatever you want to call it that's compressing on all sides, and you're going down this spiral staircase. And it's getting creepy. So I felt like that made the book a lot darker in the sense that literally it was darkness. And you started vibing with that they're in this limited light space. They've just got some dinky flashlights with them and they can't see much. Whereas the movie, a lot of it was done during the daytime. Mm-hmm. You have the first couple scenes with the only real like hardcore nighttime scene that really causes anxiety is the first interaction with the bear
thing.
Yeah, the bear thing. But if you think about the crocodile, alligator thing, shark, that was daytime. The sprites, people things.
The swimming pool.
The second interaction with the bear, while it might have been nighttime, there was enough light around that it didn't give that feeling.
I'm convinced that it was both half bear and like warthog.
Possibly. Yeah, they didn't really study that one as much. They kind of decimated its entire face.
It was pretty fucked up.
So I will say that the movie definitely got that kind of like horror vibe to it much more so, whereas the book was much more so a mysterious thriller.
Yeah, like Stress, the book.
Yeah. And I liked that a lot more. I'm not a big fan of horror movies. They get boring to me. The only horror movie that I will count that I've loved since day one has been Alien.
Okay.
I still count that as a horror movie, but it's a sci-fi. At the end of the day, I count that as a good classic horror movie.
So for me, I have to say, like, there's both things that I liked about the movie and things I didn't like about the movie. And one of the main differences that I thought that was completely useless in the movie was it wasn't even mentioned in the book was the affair.
Oh,
that had nothing to do with it. I mean,
it felt really weird that
it was just, hey, do you guys want to see Natalie Portman naked? Well, here.
It just seemed like a weird thing to throw a character into. Like, hey, she's got a military husband who's away on a mission.
Right, and I get the Dear John thing, but
let's make her cheat on him. It seemed unnecessary, and I think if they would have flushed out more, it would have made more sense. Because I mean, let's look at the facts here. He didn't tell her where he was going.
In the movie.
He couldn't in the movie.
In the movie.
He didn't tell her how long he would be gone for. And none of the military people were telling her whether he was alive or not. And it had been an entire year at this point. So, at the same time, I don't know whether I can blame her or not. Because for all she knew, he was dead. I mean, what is the moral obligation of a wife if no one will tell her if he's even alive?
That's not what I'm talking about. That's not what I'm not talking about. That I found her actions in question. That's
horrible.
No, that's not.
You're just saying it was an unnecessary detail.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Like, I mean, I can see why they did it. I understand the logic behind building the character and the mindset and the. In this case, it would have been the motivation or more motivation.
The motivation would have been more if she hadn't bothered cheating. If she had been loyal all this time and then all of a sudden he shows back up and he can't tell her anything.
Right.
I felt like that would have messed with her more than if she had been cheating to go. She would have felt more of a drive to go into Area X and discover what happened to him if she had been loyal to him the whole time. And it was just unnecessary to have this whole cheating.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Like, I mean, I'm not dissuading, or I'm not saying that I don't think that I'm not I'm really trying to. I understand why they did it. I just don't think they.
I think it is necessary.
Yeah, like the entire part, like that guy, the professor that she had the affair with, wasn't even in the fucking book. In fact, there was almost no talk of a university or anything.
A professor,
no,
really,
she was no, she was a.
She was a traveling biologist for basically a research firm. So she went out to weird places and studied marine biology for days at a time,
years,
weeks at a time, months at a time for some projects.
Yeah.
One of them was an entire year long where she was almost living by herself. She was living on the outskirts of some village or city to study some tidal pools. And that's why she was the book created her as a very interesting character of this kind of lone wolf kind of introverted. Yeah, exactly. And it was well done there, where
in the movie
it made sense then what she was doing while she was in Area X, why she was kind of willing to just go do her own thing, and why people just naturally didn't trust her is because they had built her as this character that isn't exactly the most comforting and warm person that you want to just open up to right off the bat.
Right,
she was a cold, calculated individual.
Not that that's a bad thing.
No, but
it was in her character.
It created good backdrop for her character's actions in Area X. So in the movie, she was in Area X. She had some of those same actions, but you didn't have this background of the character that told you why she was the way she was. Instead, you get this weird cheating subplot mixed with no real input of who she was as a person.
Yeah.
And I didn't like it.
I also didn't, I mean, not just with the affair, but the whole flashbacks thing. Well, I mean, I do understand the flashbacks thing, actually, now that I think about it, because they did sometimes do that, but they only did the flashback type stuff in order to emphasize, there was a part where she was talking about being called Ghost Bird.
Yeah.
In the book. And that never came up in the movie whatsoever, and that was kind of a big deal. But there was a part where they went back and they flashbacked to saying something about a conversation about being called Ghost Bird, and it was I think around the time when she found his journal.
Yeah,
and
that's about when it was.
Yeah, and the fact that they flash back to that in order to be come full circle. Now you kind of understand reading this book and it's actually for me, even though he didn't think I'd actually be here. And I understand the flashback and that sort of thing, but the flashbacks in the movie were just I got fucked.
Yeah. So I with reading the book first, I will definitely say I liked the book a lot more. You saw the movie first. Did you still like the book more?
See, this is where it gets complicated for me, because I would consider buying the book based on what I read. And I just finished it last night, and it was less than 200 pages. It's 195 pages long.
Oh, you got that down.
Yeah.
Holy crap. You got that down.
Trust me, because I was every break at work, I get a 10-minute, 2 10-minute breaks, and then a 15-minute break at work, so
just working through it.
Just working through it, and I'm just like, back to work. Fuck you! Shit's happening, yo!
So...
But it's really hard for me to say that I liked the book better versus I liked the movie better in this particular case.
Okay, and I'm going to be the grump then a little bit.
Well, here, but
this point, so go ahead and keep going.
So but here's the thing. I'll start with the movie. The movie, like, I watched the movie. It's like 2.5 hours long. Really that long? It's I
didn't realize I was sitting on that couch for that long.
Yeah, here. Okay, not 2.5. It's 115 minutes long.
Okay,
so
almost 2 hours.
It's almost 2 hours. It's a longer movie than I was anticipating, and I love long movies. Absolutely love it.
Lord of the Rings.
Extended. Let's do a lifetime.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, so I watched the movie by myself with headphones on in the dark because I wanted a full experience.
Immersion.
Plus, I had just gotten I just got brand new headphones, and they're amazing. And they did the movie justice. So the movie fucked with me, like straight up mind fuck. Like by the end of the movie, I was like, I'm not going to bed
for a little bit.
No, like I am not sleeping. Like it was. It really.
If you thought like. Because it leaves off on a kind of stupid cliffhanger. I didn't
really
like
I didn't,
that
I'm not,
so much.
But
I would have liked it if they hadn't bothered showing their eyes and let you question it.
Kind of like a what if scenario ending. So that's kind of what I was thinking was going to happen. But like throughout the entire movie, like the hybrid beast, bear, warthog, whatever the fuck thing, that was fucked up.
Yeah.
I don't care who you are. I've never seen that in a movie. It was.
I feel like
I reeled from that, but the thing is, the
part of the struggle I had with it is their scientific leaps, their hypothesis they were coming up while they were in there made no logical sense. That was part of my issue. So, like when they're talking about these animals mixing, the crocodile shark made a little bit of sense. That they were like, okay, what is going on here? Because this is not a normal crocodile. Biology here. Its teeth are not right. It's got like the multiple rows, and that's a known fact that sharks have multiple rows of teeth. That's kind of like a shark.
Yeah, they go through like 12,000 teeth a year.
They never made that assumption in the movie where they're like, oh, it's a shark crocodile hybrid, which I liked. They didn't jump to that conclusion in the movie. But then you get to the tree people thing, and they make this weird DNA logical assumption. And they just roll with it. And if you know anything about... I had to look it up a little bit because I'm not big on biology or DNA study or anything like that. But I looked it up a little bit. And it makes no sense that even if a plant could mix with that DNA, that it would grow to the size of a full-born or full-size human in that shape. So, like, it doesn't make sense that these people... It felt like they were pulling just random scientific words that kind of fit and just jammed it in there and said they were coming from scientists.
And then slapped a sci-fi genre thing on it?
Yeah, and then said, okay, this is a legitimate scientific phrase or... Scenario. Now let's mix alien messing with it and put DNA splicing on top of it just for the hell of it. And it just didn't seem to make sense. Instead of just letting it be a curiosity like it should have,
they
tried to explain it in a horrible way, in my opinion. Whereas in the book, they run into these weird things and they're like, we don't have words for it. And you're like, damn right you don't have words for it. Because this shit don't make sense. And I loved that.
Yeah, there was a couple times where like I need to reread this entire like 4 or 5 pages just to understand. What are you smoking? Nothing. Yeah. Okay, what am I smoking?
Yeah.
No, I totally agree with you. And by the way, the whole anthropologist turning into a tree thing, that scene fucked me up the
While
most.
It was kind of cool, I liked the idea that she was the one that was surrendering to the place and just letting it overwhelm her.
I think one of them said something about refraction or refracting.
Yeah.
There was a word that was used with it. Oof.
Yeah, it was refraction.
Yeah.
And it was kind of cool to see it. I wish they would have done their research on the science side a little bit more to just make it a little bit more sense, or actually like explain it in layman's terms a little better for your average viewer. And I really wish they would have let us focus in on some of the details on the bear a little more, because there was a lot that I missed initially. I had to rewatch it. And I think you missed it too, because I pointed it out and you kind of went, oh. In the book, there is a scene where they see some dolphins swimming around, and the character has a weird moment where they're like, that's not the eyes of a dolphin. That looks like human eyes that are on these dolphins. And they create this weird scene of these dolphins aren't really dolphins. Are they getting melded with humans? Is there some sort of DNA mixing?
But you don't.
And there's this weird scene also where they're in like this marsh where this creature's trying to attack them too, and they never really
explain the creature. I mean,
just
it's
know
just
that
there.
they're being chased by something, and you get this weird sense of a mass of limbs, like human-like limbs attacking them. So there's something weird going on with human DNA there. But again, they don't try to say, oh, this is obviously this. And I think the bear scene could have been done a little better by letting us see it, because I believe in the bear scene, a lot of its skull is exposed. If you look carefully on the left side, I believe it was a human jawbone was there, and a human eye. So it was, and I think that might have been why they were saying the bear melded with DNA with the person and mimicked the scream. Because I was kind of annoyed with that too. They were like, oh, it absorbed her voice box and that's why it was screaming like her. And it's like, no, it's more likely that bear melded with a bird that knows how to mimic human screams. You know, birds can just mimic sounds they hear. So it's more likely that DNA would get mixed and create a hybrid animal. But then when you see that the side of that bear's face with the jaw and the human eye, then it makes a little more sense. And it makes a little sense when you look at the way the bear killed both of its victims. It went straight for the throat, but the first person it didn't bother eating.
No,
it just ripped out the throat and that's it. I mean, it ripped apart it was a foot in the boot got
yeah,
she
got fucked up, but the main area where the attack happened was in her throat.
So that was a little bit of a weird moment as well, and I wish they would have focused a little bit more on studying the bear after they killed it. I wish they would have just killed it without blowing up its whole face and actually spent the time to study it like the scientists they were.
Very tense scene.
Yeah.
So, but those scenes kind of like they really messed with me, and that's I told you this. I was like, I don't want to watch this movie again, and you're like, why? And I was like, I don't think I can handle it. And you were like, is it really like that? And I was like, dude,
a little bit.
And but now that I've gotten over the shock moment, I wouldn't mind rewatching the movie after having freshly read the book to further understand it. Now, the book.
Okay.
In my
we really want to delve into the book here. This was
the book.
What was it? The crawler they called the thing?
Yes, they called it the crawler. So inside, when you were before talking about the tower,
the secondary
or the tunnel,
structure that they find that's not on any other maps, that none of the other expeditions have bothered to mark down or mention or any of this stuff.
Yeah, there's
they find this weird bioluminescent algae basically that's glowing, and it's words on the wall. And it comes out as almost a very biblical.
In the tunnel.
Yeah, along the wall going down into the tunnel is this writing on the walls basically in algae that's glowing in the dark. And they're kind of wondering how living life forms are creating words that they can read. And so as they're documenting, it feels very biblical.
Yes. It was very... And
it was strange.
When he says that they're written, he literally means algae took on the form of letters and words, not just like, it's something that wrote on the walls and there's algae. The algae itself is in the form of the words.
So they come up with this idea that something is writing it and it's further down below them.
Like way down. Like this thing is huge.
And it's not really sure whether the thing is aggressive or just defensive. And that's where the book really doesn't explain a lot about this thing. They interact with it the psychologist forces someone to go touch it, basically, and
through hypnosis.
yeah,
that's a thing.
They're
that's
all
in this book.
hypnotized before they go into this place to help deal with the psychological impact of what this place is. And the psychologist has key words that can basically turn them into
like a trigger.
Yeah, trigger words for various things, and the biologist ends up becoming immune to it throughout. She ingests some spores off of that algae, and that's what she assumes makes her immune to it. Because it's after that she no longer, or she starts realizing that the psychologist is doing this stuff, and she has to pretend that it's working on her.
Which was kind of cool. I'm not gonna lie. Like I've never really believed in hypnosis and stuff like that. It's just I think I'm just far too much of a grounded person for it to ever work on me. But reading it in a perspective that in this way, I could almost believe that it would actually work. Like it was done in a way that like, okay, I see what you're doing there, and
it's like sleeper cell triggers.
Yeah, like it was really cool.
So she ends up becoming immune to it, and people start catching on to it. The psychologist starts questioning her a little bit and wondering what's up. But, one of the members of this thing gets killed by this crawler. And they find the body, and they realize that as they're going down this tower / tunnel...
That gets thrown around a lot.
The algae is getting brighter as they go, so it's becoming fresher, more recently put on the walls.
Almost
they're getting
dripping.
Closer. And they realize that, the person that was killed, was it the surveyor that got killed?
No, surveyor was shot by the biologist later.
Okay, that's right.
You're mixing the movie.
I'm trying to remember everything.
Who are you trying to say?
Who got killed by the crawler?
The anthropologist was found by the surveyor and the biologist.
Yeah.
Remember, there's no names.
Yeah,
it's just career paths and what they do.
So you get a lot more of the mystery in the book, and I liked that. You don't know what the hell is going on.
Nothing is definite. Nothing was ever super certain or set in stone.
They're not making assumptions. So the anthropologist gets killed, but she gets a sample of the crawler. And the biologist takes that and realizes it's basically the same thing as brain matter, which doesn't make any sense. Like,
human brain matter.
Human brain matter is creating the outside of this crawler creature that when the anthropologist went to take a scraping off of it, it was brain matter instead of skin. So it's creating, and she's not jumping to any conclusions. She's just in shock and not sure how to evaluate what she just found. So I feel like that creates a much better vibe to it. So as far as the book goes, they don't bother, the lighthouse doesn't really serve as a alien focal point there. It's this tunnel tower. In the lighthouse, they instead find
the remains of a battle
of
some sort, but it's never really and some warnings.
And hidden in there is an entire pile of journals, and they realize there is a lot more expeditions that have come in here than they were ever told.
Originally, they said there was only 12 expeditions, which goes back 30 years. Mm-hmm. But they're finding journals.
Dozens upon dozens upon dozens. Like possibly hundreds of journals. And each expedition was only reported to have like 5 or 6 members at a time. So it makes no sense that there'd be this many journals from this many people, especially ones at this level of rotting for what's going on. And it creates this idea that... So something I didn't like about the movie was the fact that they just walk right in there. They don't bother taking... they talk about how... it makes logical sense that on the beach there, why not just take a Jeep with old school Jeeps with no guidance system, just classic engine, just drive down the beach and get to the center of it instead of doing a 4-day hike to get to where they're going.
Movie.
So they don't explain why they don't do this, and I feel like the book does that.
Yes.
It looks like they've done a lot of trials, whereas the movie, they don't explain that there's been hundreds of expeditions that have tried all these things. A lot of, when I was looking up, talking to some other people about it, it's a lot of the questions was, why not just tie somebody to a really long rope, send them partway into Area X, and just drag them back out and see what happened to them real quick? Why aren't they doing the classic minimalist tests each time? Why are they just straight up sending people in there and hoping they come back out? It doesn't make sense in a scientific standpoint. That's not how you would test a mysterious thing. You would send normally inanimate objects.
Like a rover, a drone.
A drone with a set flight path that you don't need to worry about a satellite controlling it or a remote. Like literally just pre-programmed.
Go
100 yards forward, 100 yards back. Let's talk.
12-year-old kid could do it.
Yeah, whereas it feels like the book probably did this. They talk a little bit more about why none of that stuff would work, why they're not bothering to do it.
They wanted to minimize the amount of technology that was
being sent in
there because they didn't want it to be like... They said something around the lines of like they didn't want to have a adverse effect on whatever was in there.
So my assumption, once you find all those journals, it makes sense. You're like, they've already had an adverse effect. That's why they're hesitant about it now. They've tried that already. And
been there, done that. Let's not do this again.
So each of these tests is getting more and more restrictive. So that's what I didn't like that in the movie, that they didn't bother... You know, even just them getting to the beach and seeing a Jeep just fucked up would have explained so much, like, oh, maybe they did try that already.
But clearly it didn't work.
Yeah, and that's why we're here on foot hiking our happy asses in.
So I actually think this what we're talking about right now segues into this question I had for you, what you thought. So at the near very close to the end of the book, there's like maybe 20 pages after this part, the biologist is delving super deep into the tunnel.
She's basically hunting down this crawler, trying to figure out where it is.
Past the crawler scene.
Oh, yeah.
So she gets down into that part where she's trying to go forward, and she starts seeing, like, quick context. In the first, like, couple of pages of the book, there's a part where they're going first into Area X, and the psychologist tells them you are not allowed to turn around and look behind you as we walk in here. I can't remember exactly why, but it was part of the hypnosis or something. Mm-hmm. But she does, and she kind of sees like this very vague, hazy sort of, I want to say like swamp gassy type stuff. Mm-hmm. End of the book. She's past the crawler part. She's in the tunnel. She's going even deeper. And she comes across, and she starts getting like this almost like hesitancy, like, I shouldn't go forward, but I want to go forward. But you really shouldn't go forward, but I want to go forward. But you really shouldn't go forward. And it's she's explaining it as though something's kind of like mild suggestion hypnosis about don't go forward anymore, come back. But and I really wanted her to go forward. I wanted to know what was further down the rabbit hole, so to speak.
I have a feeling a lot of the second and third book have to deal with that.
That's true. I completely forgot it's a trilogy,
and I'm really not sure what to even think of that scene. It just adds to this whole mysterious, because the person who's immune to the hypnosis is now reacting to a sort of hypnosis again.
In and of itself.
And it's kind of throwing off your perception that she was immune to it suddenly. She just struggled through this insane crawler situation, which that scene itself was like...
That was almost giving me a headache. Like, I was trying to understand
what it was doing to her. Like, it was a very painful scene for the character. And she gets past it, and then she turns back. I don't know what to think about that one. And I think that's where this book did a good job. As a book, this sort of in someone's mind works so amazingly.
It was written in a first-person point of view.
And that's why I'm going to even say I don't think they should have even bothered making this a movie. They should have taken this budget, all these people working on this, and gone and made a movie that would have been much more adaptable to the big screen. Because this book, while a great book, does not transfer to the screen as easily, which is why they had to change so much. Because so much of this is internal thought process and question and mystery, and it's not designed to give you answers, and that doesn't work on the big screen as easily.
Right.
It doesn't work for a movie, and I think that's probably why it didn't really do great in theaters.
what do you think about if they made it instead of a movie, but in kind of like a not in a TV series, but like in the styling and the budget of like Game of Thrones? No?
I think it should have just stayed a book.
Oh, okay, well.
While I did enjoy the movie, it was a good watch. I feel like...
But you didn't gain more out of it than you did...
It should be a separate entity than the book. It shouldn't have the same name. It's a different story, really. They just kind of lifted some of the titles and some of the subtle stuff to be able to call it the same thing.
Like someone played with a document and put clip art instead of what was supposed to be there? Mm-hmm. Okay.
So I feel like they shouldn't have bothered. They should have just come up with their own little story that kind of was what they were doing with that movie and not bothered trying to say that it was this book. Because this book doesn't translate to the screen.
It is insanely difficult. Because, like you said, most of it is in her head.
Mm-hmm.
And
there's only so much like narrating you can do to get the same effect. Narrating just doesn't give you that same effect as reading this kind of thriller, what the fuck is going on shit. So I honestly would say they shouldn't have made the movie. While I enjoyed it, they shouldn't have done it.
I'm kind of on the same thing. Like I gained some fresh nightmare fuel from the movie.
Yeah.
But
okay.
But that's pretty much it. Like it was, I wouldn't mind watching it every once in a while, but I'm not gonna. I would
only watch it again if I was showing it to somebody.
Yeah,
I have no intention of ever just sitting down and be like, I want to watch this again.
I'm watching you watch it. Like that sort of thing.
I want to see someone else's reaction to it. That's the only time I'd ever want to really watch it, and it'd only be during certain scenes. I have a feeling a lot of the movie I'd be sitting there playing some game on my phone.
Oh yeah, that's the part where
it's just
gone.
Okay, I got about 5 more minutes before I got to look at what you react to. What's in 5 minutes?
Oh,
nothing.
One thing that I thought was really cool in the book, and I really hope that you made this connection. So, when she found the psychologist at the lighthouse, and she passed on, and she went through the psychologist, all her stuff, and she found all those triggers. One of the triggers was saying the term annihilation. Mm-hmm. And that was to help induce suicide. Or assisted suicide or something like that. Like, psychologists would say annihilation and target would commit suicide. Mm-hmm. And there was a scene where, like, right when the biologist was walking up to the psychologist, she started screaming, annihilation, annihilation, annihilation.
She was trying to get
and that like
biologist to kill herself.
And I don't think that would have like this is one of those moments where you're talking about it wouldn't have translated so well from a book perspective, because you don't find out until later, like another 5 or 6 pages later, that annihilation, the term, was a trigger. But then I did this 2 days ago when I got to that part. I was like, wait a minute. And I flipped back and I was like, she said it 3. Oh. Like you don't really, I don't think that would have translated that like aha moment in the movie. I mean, she did say it in the movie when she went down in the lighthouse and that psychologist thing was there.
Oh, or she vomited an alien?
Something. Like, she screamed that annihilation. Like, but
I think the movie was talking more of the scientific annihilation. There's another version of the word annihilation. I think it's the biological annihilation.
But that's what I'm talking about. Like that part really messed with me. Like, I understood that, like, it was supposed to...
So, in physics, annihilation is the conversion of matter into energy. There is another meaning... And I think that's where they were going with the movie, because she screams annihilation, and she turns into a being of energy. It is a conversion between mass and energy.
So she's not screaming annihilation for the fact that she's literally dying. She's screaming annihilation because of the process?
Yeah, I believe so.
That's really fucked up.
And that's something that I mean, I even studied physics for a long time, and I didn't catch it.
I never knew that.
Yeah, I had to look up stuff online to help me with some of this stuff, because I was just like, oh my god, this was just so much. It was like midnight. I wasn't all there anymore
so much
at
stuff.
this point. So, do we want to do our ratings? Let's do ratings. So I think we've talked about the movie enough at this point.
Okay. Out of 10?
Movie first.
I want to say, like...
Out of 10, 10 being you would change absolutely nothing. 1 being this thing is a steaming pile of hot doggy duke.
Very bad. That sort of thing. Okay.
Yeah.
I want to give it at least, like, a 6 to 7. Worth watching once. Worth watching someone else watch it once. Rent it. Buy it. I mean, I would say if you're going to do it, just rent it. Don't bother buying it. $5 bin Blu-ray. $5 Blu-ray bin. That's fine.
Yeah.
I'd say a 6 to 7.
The visuals are absolutely stunning. So if you're going to do it, try and do it on Blu-ray just because it is very pretty. A lot of the minor detail is super cool to see it. But I mean, just rent it on Amazon Video and do it that way.
6 to
2 or
7
$3.
for me. 6 to 7 for the movie. Worth watching once.
I'm gonna only give it a 4 as far as the movie, because I just don't think they should have even bothered making the movie. And like I said, I did enjoy the movie. Like, it was cool to watch.
But it was.
But I don't think they should have done it. I don't think they should have done it. They should have. It just. I don't know who thought this was the book to make a movie on with the director and whatnot. You know, like. There's so many other books out there that would have been so much easier to transfer to the big screen that would have been able to be these crazy, like, psychological mind fucks over here.
I don't even know who directed this movie.
Don't worry about it. So I'm only going to give the movie a 4, maybe 4.5. Book.
Oh my god.
I did the book first. I'll go with the book first.
Go.
Without having read the rest of the trilogy, this one's standing on its own. I'll give it a 7.5. It was a very good read.
That's lower than I thought you were going to say.
It's never going to be on, like, my favorite shelf.
That's fair. Because it's very much outside of our normal realm of stuff.
But not only that, like, there was so much going on. I feel like if I finish the trilogy, it might get bumped up overall.
Okay, so...
But as a standalone, I'm going to go with a 7.5 for the book. Definitely worth a read. Pick it up. It's cheap enough. It's a small little paperback. It's pretty small.
195 pages. You can finish that.
Pick it up at Half Price Books. Get it at some used store. I'm sure there'll be a copy there.
Go without the movie cover. Do yourself a flavor, because the other cover is really cool.
Yeah, it is cooler, but this is what they had on Amazon when I was ordering. So, so I'm gonna give it 7.5 for the book.
You know, the thing is, because I thought, like I said, I thought you were gonna rate it higher. I'm gonna go with basically the same thing. Like it's literally stress the book. Like you, I mean, I've read we've read tons of books that were like, yeah, like this is a really cool part, and then that part's over, and then there's more to the story. But this book was kind of like one of those, like, now something's happening. No, it's not.
Yeah, it's
now what's happening.
Dragging you along on this weird. Not even a roller coaster ride. You're still just climbing that hill for the roller coaster. You keep thinking you're gonna crest, but it just like sits still for a second, and then you're like climbing again. You're like, oh god.
And then when you finally do get to like,
it's like a 15-page thing, and that's the whole downhill thing, and you're just done.
Yeah, but coming down from that book was just kind of like,
it is
like deep breaths at the end.
So you're gonna give it what, like a 7.5?
Same. I'm gonna say same. Read the book.
Read the
book. And
the book was very well done. Movie is if you feel like it, in my opinion.
Yeah, very.
Rent it if you want. Rent it. You don't if you don't. But read the book if you're into that
this
sort of genre. If you're into kind of this weird sci-fi.
It's definitely the main terms of science fiction.
Yeah. So yeah, that's Annihilation.
I
want to talk about what we're going to be doing on our next episode.
Yeah.
Up and coming.
Yes, up and coming.
I think, are we going to do the divinity thing? Let's do the divinity thing.
So
you go ahead.
So Ty had the good idea that we were going to do a kind of a different take on Scroll versus Screen for a video game
It's
club?
still going to be talking about the original kind of source material for the genre versus what's happened in modern day's screen version.
Mm-hmm. So we're going to be taking D&D.
And it actually has to do with this
Very
stuff.
much this. Dungeons and Dragons. And it's going to be going against Divinity Original Sin. The first one. We
haven't even beat it yet.
Haven't even beaten it yet because it's stupid long.
So we're going to be doing a recording of us playing. We're going to capture some video, probably about 10 minutes, get a little bit of combat in there to show how the combat system works, a little bit of the RP system. And Divinity has a really cool system of, if my character wants to go one direction, you want to go the other direction, of how you fight it out. And I really think it's an interesting little take.
Yes.
And I'll say it's as if D&D didn't have the dice, but it was still D&D.
There's still
a cool way of doing it.
Yeah, it was,
and with advantages and disadvantages and how you want to play and all this stuff. So we're going to be comparing classic D&D pen and paper tabletop gaming
versus
to the modern screen version of a video game that is a turn-based, heavy role-playing, heavy world-building
that pulled a lot
game
from D&D. Like,
yeah,
there was a lot in common with it. So that's
the various races around, the whole traveling the world, magic and spells and all this sort of stuff. So,
roll for initiative.
Yeah. So we're gonna. I think we'll do a little bit of. We'll show them the character creation and the differences.
Mm-hmm.
We'll show them the combat and the differences, the role play and the differences, and the player versus player, how you settle things. So instead of do a insight check, do a persuasion check, how they do it in the game, and we'll compare all that. So that's going to be next time on Scroll vs. Screen. We're going to be talking D&D. Also in the near future, we're starting a new campaign, possibly in October, and if we figure out how to record it, we might actually start recording. It's going to be a large group of people, larger than most of my games.
Larger than life.
And not to say that I have a massive group coming, but it looks like we're going to have about 6 players. I usually only average about 3 players in a game.
Combat is going to be stupid fun.
Yeah, it's going to be great.
I'm
so
pretty excited
we might
for this.
do clips of D&D in the future as well. And we might do a couple other filler episodes in the meantime. I know we have another Loot Crate coming. We might do a little episode with that. Talk about just some random books that are out. And go from there. So
sounds like a fantastic...
I've talked a lot. Did you have more to say? I'm sorry.
No. No. I'm
a commanding individual.
No, I like where our head's at for this one. And I like... Annihilation was a real trip.
Yeah, it was a real
trip. And I'm really glad that
Good
we went
read.
on. Oh, man.
I'd recommend
I think this was
it.
definitely one of our premiere episodes for this. Like, this is...
Yeah, let's call it, I guess.
All right, well, thanks again for joining us at Scroll vs. Screen.
I'm out!